The most important question that should be asked to Putin is, how were you going to win the war with 2% of world GDP against an enemy that makes up 60% of world GDP? Truly, even if Putin does not work for the Chinese panda, he is doing everything to strengthen Beijing and destroy his own empire. But Comrade Xi, who was initially interested in weakening Ukraine and tacitly blessed Putin for this adventure, will eventually receive a powerful NATO foothold on the territory of this country, and a new flowering of Western military concerns. The US is embarking on the largest increase in munitions production in decades, investing $3 billion to buy munitions and ramp up production at home. The plan provides for the expansion and modernization of existing enterprises, as well as the construction of new factories for the production of ammunition. Concerns producing armored vehicles, artillery and missile systems receive large-scale orders. There will be no Vietnamese version. They shot back with junk, emptied warehouses for new types of weapons and left. The US is returning to Europe to increase its influence on the continent. After all, ahead is a fight with the main enemy, and this enemy is not Russia, but China. But before the final clash, it is necessary to liberate Ukraine, as the main springboard, where the strike forces of the United States and NATO will be concentrated in the future. That is why the alliance is now shifting its axis of power from the Franco-German direction towards Poland. There are already 647 main battle tanks here, which is almost 3 times more than in the UK. Poland also has an order for a batch of 250 new Abrams, a second batch of 116 Abrams from the US, and 1,000 K2 tanks from South Korea, 180 of which have already been built. Poland's defense budget increased from 2.5% of GDP to 4%. At the same time, Poland also seeks to increase the number of military personnel from 114,000 to 300. Ahead is a decisive battle for Ukraine, and the starting point is likely to be the anniversary of Putin's invasion, February 24th. Too many events close on this date. The Kremlin is sharpening its fangs on the eve of the leader's message. They wonder in the cave, either the leader will conserve the regime and crawl away, or he will declare total war on the West and fly off the nuclear coils. He has already sent the ships with tactical nuclear weapons on board. The white-hot propagandists are already almost begging, "Peace, dear father," and he is still pulling rubber. By and large, Putin is the only one who benefits from dragging out the war. Biden has an electoral deadline, and this year it is desirable to finish everything by starting the restoration of Ukraine and the arrangement of military bridgeheads on its territory. It is on this topic that Biden's visit to Poland will take place, which will also take place immediately before the anniversary of Putin's invasion. Both Moscow and Kyiv are preparing for February 24th. A massive 3-wave missile attack on Ukraine is quite likely, and something spectacular will fly in response. It is logical to assume that the armed forces of Ukraine will clearly knock on Crimea, and not only, and this may be a harbinger of the coming offensive of the armed forces of Ukraine. Ukrainian intelligence monitors the dynamics of the mood of the population on the occupied peninsula, noting that the de-occupation process will include military, economic, social, humanitarian and legal aspects. A set of necessary programs will be implemented in Crimea to restore normal and safe life there. The Crimean Peninsula will again become a popular Ukrainian resort, said the representative of the Ukrainian intelligence Skibitsky. The Kremlin is also aware of the inevitability of the loss of Crimea, and this event may trigger the process of desacralization of the leader. True, he can play ahead of the curve by sending fattened oligarchic bulls to the slaughterhouse and getting dirt on the rushing politicians. Oil and gas revenues collapsed, and the central bank stated the failure of export revenues. The inflow of foreign currency to the market fell by 36% compared to December 2022. At the same time, expenditures on the army and law enforcement agencies amount to almost 10 trillion rubles, while the budget hole in January amounted to almost 2 trillion rubles, setting a record since the default 1998. There is no money, and not everyone will hold on to the staggering vertical. A big Putin cleansing before conservation is inevitable. And the struggle for the purity of the Russian language will not be limited. Heart attacks and suicides get ready. Shaking will be not only the cave itself, but also the Belarusian cave. No wonder Lukashenko rushed to Moscow to check his watch before the last push of his big brother. The atmosphere is filled with the spirit of a breakthrough into the underworld, which the Kremlin will call the last battle for a place in paradise.